Everyone's seen Vikings in movies or TV shows, but the truth about them is far more surprising than the fantastical versions we usually watch. In reality, a Viking man most likely spent his days working as a farmer, while his wife was in charge of the household, family, and daily chores. In the evenings, the entire family, yes, often including the goats, slept in a single room. Quite different from the image most people imagine when they think of Vikings, isn't it? Today, we'll take a closer look at some of the lesser-known, intriguing, and sometimes strange aspects of ancient Viking life. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the Medieval Archive channel. Then, head to the comments and let us know which warrior culture you'd like us to explore in more detail. Now, let's step into the world of real warriors who were born in the cold lands of the north. Viking culture was indeed ruthless. For Vikings, raiding expeditions were not just a means of gain. They were almost a part of daily life. One of the most valuable spoils of these raids was captives. Captured people were taken to Scandinavia and included in the slave class known as thralls, who could then be sold. Viking warriors sailed across Europe, from the coasts of Spain to the magnificent lands of Byzantium, targeting villages, towns, and wealthy port cities. They especially abducted women, forming the foundation of a vast slave trade network. Archaeological finds such as iron neck rings and remains of forced labor sites in Sweden prove that Viking slavery practices were not just rumors. Furthermore, some mass graves found in certain regions show strong evidence of human sacrifices associated with religious rituals. Accounts of brutal ceremonies in medieval chronicles align with these findings. For all these reasons, even the news of an approaching Viking raid was enough to strike fear into the hearts of people. The idea that Vikings wore horned helmets is a myth, but the existence of elaborate Viking funerals is very real. When a famous warrior died, he was sometimes placed on a tiny boat or on a massive warship. The vessel was filled with the deceased's belongings needed for the afterlife: jewelry, animals, weapons, and most frightening of all, living slaves. Often, even on land, the ship was set on fire, sending the warrior off in a torrent of flames. While this honor was mostly reserved for men, a significant number of Viking women were also buried in this way. A 10th century funeral, observed by Ahmed ibn Fadlan, closely resembles these ship-burning rituals. According to Fadlan, 1/3 of a wealthy person's estate went to the family, 1/3 to funeral garments, and the final third to alcohol consumed during the ceremony. In short, a Viking funeral was also a grand party. As you might expect, winter in Scandinavia was harsh. The ground froze, roads vanished, and even moving around became a struggle. Yet for Vikings, who had to hunt to survive, this was no obstacle. According to researchers, their solution was quite clever. They moved by sliding. More than 100 pine tree skis found in wetlands show how widespread this method was. Primitive skates made from reindeer or horse bones have also been discovered. Ornate wooden sleds found in wealthy women's graves indicate that winter travel was far more advanced than we might imagine. In short, snow and ice didn't stop the Vikings. They were part of their world. Vikings are not known as fashion icons, but their hairstyles were quite striking for their time. When they arrived in England, locals immediately noticed their unusual haircuts. Short and tidy at the front, distinctly long at the back. Although the church disapproved of this look, it remained popular even among Norman warriors of Viking descent. In other words, Viking hair choices left a longer-lasting impression than we might think. Most Vikings lived in modest homes consisting of a single large room, often shared with animals. Wealthier families had two-room houses, reducing the chance of a goat wandering into the sleeping area at night. As wealth increased over time, larger and more organized structures began to appear. The long hall, or longhouse, at the heart of these homes, served as both the communal living space and the area where meals were prepared. So, while Viking homes seemed simple, life inside was very much alive. Viking women could sometimes be warriors or leaders, but they were mostly responsible for household and family duties. While men worked in the fields, women managed the home, organized food supplies, repaired clothes, and even mended ship sails when needed. This position of responsibility also meant a challenging life. Adultery by a woman was considered a serious crime, and in some regions, A man had the right to kill both his wife and her lover. On the other hand, men could have concubines and children outside marriage, and this behavior was socially accepted. Hence, some early Christian observers thought Vikings were polygamists. Yet, women had certain rights. When seeking a divorce, often it was enough to simply declare, "I divorce," in front of a few witnesses. The process became more complicated when property was involved, but having this right was remarkable for the time. Vikings had a game enjoyed by both men and women, hnefatafl, a strategy game similar to chess. It likely originated from the Roman period. Vikings also knew classical chess. One of the best examples is the famous Lewis chessman, set at the British Museum, 12th century Norwegian chess pieces made from whale and walrus iron. Hnefatafl was so widespread that it is mentioned in many Scandinavian sagas. For instance, a game between Knut the Great and a noble named Olaf appears in these stories. Contrary to popular belief, Vikings were not illiterate. They had a runic alphabet called futhark, used by both men and women. Composed of 24 letters, this alphabet was suitable for writing many Germanic languages. Rune-inscribed stones have been found throughout Northern Europe, some believed to carry magical meanings. Storytelling was crucial in Viking culture. Professional storytellers were called Skalds. Like the bards of ancient Greece, they memorized long sagas and recited them by the fire or in halls. They entertained while teaching young generations about culture, history, and mythology. Skalds were even present in royal courts, praising rulers in their stories. Between 812 and 1200, we know the names of around 300 Skalds. Their use of metaphors called kennings added rich imagination to their poetry. For example, instead of saying death, they might say, "The swords sleep." In the 13th century, scholar Snorri Sturluson wrote a book teaching these kennings. The survival of Norse mythology today owes much to Snorri's work. Viking diets were protein-heavy, regardless of social status. Even the poorest Viking ate better than most English peasants of the Middle Ages. A typical Viking family had 2 meals a day, one in the morning and one at the end of the day. Meat formed the diet's base, including goat, deer, cattle, sheep, horse, and occasionally bear. Pork was especially popular, and most dishes were boiled. A stew called scouse was often eaten with bread. Being seafarers, fish was essential, especially herring, which could be pickled, smoked, or dried. Vegetables and fruits also enriched their meals. Carrots, beans, cabbage, apples, and spices were commonly used to enhance flavor. Of course, there were health challenges. Archaeological finds of Viking toilets show that people dealt with intestinal parasites. Sometimes, toxic wild plant seeds accidentally mixed into bread. So life wasn't perfect. Regarding drinks, while we enjoy beer today, Vikings preferred mead, a fermented honey drink made from honey, water, and yeast. It was consumed especially at feasts and was believed to inspire good poetry. In Norse mythology, there was even a legendary goat named Heidrun that provided mead instead of milk. Vikings loved to have fun, and their feasts were legendary. Held in huge longhouses and usually organized by a chief or king, celebrations marked harvests, religious rituals, weddings, births, or successful raids. But the main purpose of these feasts was not food. It was to strengthen social bonds. Relationships were reinforced, political positions remembered, alliances formed, and the cohesion of the community ensured. So, how would you fare living as a Viking? Don't forget to write your thoughts in the comments. And while you're here, check out the other videos on our channel.